When the nurses learned why the parents had left the newborn, they were appalled and contacted the authorities. The newborn never had any visits at the hospital. Ashley grabbed for the small baby, who was alone in the incubator, her hands shaking. The clean hospital room was filled with the quiet beep of medical monitors, but the stillness around the newborn was deafening. Parents, grandparents, and even distant relatives visited every child in the ward, but not this one. No one had come forward to claim the baby in the days that had gone by. In her 10 years at the hospital, Ashley had witnessed many unfortunate situations, but there was something about this infant that made her uneasy that she couldn't explain. The infant was surrounded by an odd, almost unnatural quiet. The other nurses avoided the incubator as though they were scared to approach it too closely, and they discussed it in low tones. Nothing appeared wrong when she initially saw the infant. The youngster appeared healthy, little, and fragile. However, the truth hit her like a thunderbolt when she bent over to see how the baby was doing. Her heart hammered against her ribs, and her breath caught. She had never seen anything like the baby's eyes. Their eyes were frighteningly awake, almost too aware, as if the infant comprehended the world long beyond its first few days of existence, rather than the soft, unfocused stare of a newborn. However, that wasn't the most startling aspect. The baby's pupils briefly transformed from spherical to slit-like, nearly reptilian. As it blinked, Ashley flinched, her thoughts racing. Was it her imagination? Is it a trick of the light? She made herself inhale steadily and glanced once more. She felt a chill go down her spine as the infant gazed back at her with piercing eyes. The room seemed suddenly chilly. Searching for answers, she seized the chart at the base of the incubator. Important information was missing from the file. There were no parents recorded, no medical history was known, and only a general statement that read, "Discovered unoccupied at 3:33 a.m. Caller who is anonymous." No other details. She shuddered again when she saw the time, 3:33. That was the witching hour, a period of time historically linked to odd happenings and inexplicable incidents. Ashley felt her heart race as an unstoppable notion began to creep into her head. What if the infant was abandoned out of fear rather than cruelty? She rushed to the closest phone upon realizing. Her fingers were shaking when she phoned the cops. "Ashley Hayes, a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital, is here. We have a baby that was abandoned," and I believe her logical mind begged her to pause and think again about what she was going to say, but she hesitated. She took a deep breath. "I believe you should send someone right away. There's something wrong with this infant." The line splintered. With a sigh, the officer on the other end obviously anticipated a standard report. "Miss, we frequently deal with incidents of abandonment. What precisely is so about this one?" The hospital's lights flickered, briefly engulfing the unit in darkness. Ashley's hair stood on end as an inexplicable static charge suddenly filled the air. A delicate sound that no infant should be able to create then floated through the room. Not a coo, not a wail, just a whisper. Ashley hung up the phone. Ashley could swear she heard the baby's mouth move once more, and even though no one else was near enough to hear, she heard the icy word "run." The cops had already arrived. However, Ashley feared that it could be too late by the time they got there. The whisper sent frost through Ashley's veins, making her body tense. Once more, the hospital lights flickered, creating odd shadows on the walls. Since they were too preoccupied with caring for other patients to observe what was going on in this peaceful area of the emergency room, the other nurses hadn't seen anything out of the ordinary. Ashley, however, was aware that something was dreadfully, horribly wrong. She quickly returned her attention to the infant in the incubator. The baby looked up at her, motionless. That was not how newborns were intended to focus. Whispering was not to be tolerated. Furthermore, they most certainly weren't meant to provide a run warning. The cops had to arrive quickly. However, a persistent idea crept into her head. What if they didn't think she was real? What if they took the infant away and labeled it as just another terrible story in a long line of disasters, another example of abandonment? A faint recollection of her grandmother's old stories of kids who weren't quite human drifted across Ashley's head. Beings that wandered the earth in baby skins but held something far older inside were creatures born under weird moons. No, it was absurd, was it not? In an attempt to calm herself, she inhaled deeply before reaching forward once again. Her icy fingertips brushed over the infant's little palm. Too chilly, then suddenly the baby was holding her back. Ashley let out a gasp. It was too powerful. Things like that were too heavy for newborns to grasp onto. Then it grew black in the room. A piercing, unearthly scream reverberated throughout the ward. The nurses let forth a cry. Uncontrollably, machines beeped, glass broke somewhere. Ashley stumbled backward, gasping for air, and snatched her hand away. A faint, unsettling glow filled the room as the emergency backup lights came on. However, the infant had vanished. There was nothing in the incubator. Ashley felt her heart hit her ribs hard. That was not feasible. Just now, she had touched it. The hospital personnel hurried to restore order as the room hummed with terror. A doctor shouted something about a power surge as he rushed by her. A fall infestation caused another nurse to tumble. No one had observed. There had been no sight. Ashley swung around, instinctively, beyond the ward. The corridor drew into a spooky quiet, the air heavy with an unidentified substance. Next, the corridor resonated with a quiet chuckle that wasn't a naive child's laugh. It was an alternative. Somebody is observing. Something is awaiting you. Ashley wasn't thinking, she went running. In her heart, though, she knew the truth. There was more to come, and it was only the start. Ashley ran along the dark hallway, her feet hammering against the chilly hospital floor. Her heart pounded in her chest as she breathed in rough breaths. She could still feel the chuckle around her like a chilly whisper, even after it had subsided. The infant had vanished. Ashley understood, somehow, that it wasn't lost. It was gone. However, how? Why? She came to a stop next to the nurse's station after skidding. A few employees were still in shock after the unexpected outage. One of them, Miriam, a seasoned nurse with gray strands in her red hair, grimaced when she saw Ashley's terrified look. Miriam extended a worried hand. "What is the matter?" Ashley opened her lips to talk, to tell what had occurred, but she was unable to find the right words. The abandoned kid simply disappeared into thin air. How could she possibly say that? How could she account for the murmur, the unhuman hold? The way the incubator had suddenly gone from being full to being empty? She felt Miriam's touch on her shoulder. "I think you've seen a ghost." Ashley swallowed forcefully. "Perhaps I have." One of the medics and a just-arrived policeman were fighting a few feet away. Ashley felt a wave of relief wash over her at last. There was someone here who could assist. However, she saw something as she approached them. A series of little footsteps. Walking down the corridor, they left the incubator behind. Bare wet, too little to be anyone's except babies. Ashley's stomach fell. No, that wasn't feasible. Sorry, babies couldn't walk. As though something had slithered out of the incubator and vanished into the night, the imprints continued to lengthen. As she grasped Miriam's sleeve and pointed down at the prints, her fingers faltered. "Let me know if you notice that." Miriam followed her eyes, then let out a gasp, her face becoming pale. Oh God, Ashley didn't think twice. She started down the corridor, tracing the impossibly long path. The hospital's pediatric isolation unit, which had been temporarily closed for repairs, was the destination of the winding, twisting footprints that led farther within. There shouldn't be anyone inside, however, there was something. Ashley's heart pounded in her ears as she paused at the thick doors. Inside, a faint emergency light flickered, creating long, unsettling shadows on the walls. The air was heavy and very frigid. She then heard it, a murmur. The distant chamber at the end of the hallway was the source of it. Ashley's gut told her to turn back and leave, but she had to know. She had to see. She walked slowly inside. First, the room was empty. She glanced toward the distant wall, though. She felt her blood run cold. There, in rough, uneven characters, were phrases scribbled over the wall, smeared with a black, moist fluid too thick to be water, too dark to be just blood. "He's coming," her throat seized with a quick gulp. The door behind her slammed. "You shouldn't have followed," a kind voice, neither human nor kid, murmured in her ear during the ensuing stillness.